Welcome to everybody here. I know you came out on a hot one, so we have people on Zoom also, so they can sit at home and without going out in the heat. An option that a lot of people choose. So my name is Debbie Nicole. I am a King County Master Gardener, and I'm the chairperson of the workshop committee. And I can't stop myself from doing workshops all the time because I love it so much. I just want to let you know that I am a avid butterfly watcher and wannabe photographer. I am not an entomologist. So if you have entomology level questions, I'll be happy to take those and pass them on to the entomologist experts. So today we're going to talk about butterflies, and I specifically wanted to narrow down to butterflies in Delaware, since that's where we are. So there are actually 120 different species of butterflies in Delaware, but I wasn't going to talk about 120 butterflies today. So I chose 20 of them to talk about briefly. And I based my choices not so much on, anything I researched, but on things that I actually see in my own backyard. So I know they're here, I know they're around. So that was my basis for that decision. So butterflies are out now. They come out in Delaware. They come out in the summer. As soon as it gets warm enough, they say around June, but if it's warmer, they'll come out earlier. If it's warmer later in the season, they'll stay out later. They base it on the weather and they don't look at the calendar. So it's not an exact science. So first I wanted to talk about the difference between a butterfly and a moth, because sometimes it's a little hard to tell. So both butterflies and moths are part of the order Lepidoptera. Okay, that's the order, and they're both in that group. But 90% of Lepidoptera are moths. The majority of them are moths. Okay, so there's less butterflies than moths out there. So what's the difference? Basically, most butterflies, not all, are more brightly colored. So you notice them more. Moths are usually more dull colored. The body of a butterfly is usually more slim and less fuzzy than a moth. When butterflies rest, they hold their wings straight up. When moths rest, they leave their wings out. The antenna of the butterfly, if you can get close enough to actually observe their antenna, which is not that easy, are more thin and straight, usually, and moths are stubbier and they have little, sometimes little comb-looking things at the end or little hooks. But some butterflies do too, so that's not an exact way to tell the difference. Moths don't make a chrysalis. So these are basically the way they pupate. Both of them pupate, but moths pupate in a cocoon woven from like silk threads, and butterflies pupate in a chrysalis. So that's a very big distinction, because there's a lot of butterflies, as we'll see, that you would look at, you would say, that's not a butterfly, that looks like a moth, but they're a butterfly because they pupate in a chrysalis. And the other big difference is, the reason you see so many butterflies is butterflies are diurnal. That means they're out active during the daytime. And moths are active at night. They're nocturnal for the most part. I mean, there's some variations, but those are some distinct differences. Another difference is the difference in how long the caterpillar's life lasts. So a moth can be a caterpillar for weeks or months, but a butterfly is only a caterpillar for 10 to 15 days. So they have a shorter caterpillar time. Okay, this is a pretty simple slide, but there's actually a lot of stuff going on here. So butterflies and moths both go through what they call a complete metamorphosis. So they have 4 stages, 4 completely different stages. The first stage is eggs. course. I would not attempt to identify a butterfly by its eggs. There's so many that look so similar and they're so small. The way to identify the butterfly is not by the eggs, but what kind of plant the eggs are on. That's how I would identify. If I have eggs on this plant, I would be pretty sure those are the eggs of the eastern black swallowtail. The eggs hatch and they become a larva, or also known as a caterpillar. Same vocabulary there. The larvae are born and they eat and they eat and they eat and they grow and they grow and grow. That's their job. They eat and they grow. And then when they're ready, they start pupating. So they slow down, they start changing, they find something to hang on to, and they start making their pupa. And like we said, they may be in the pupa for a couple of weeks. And then they emerge full grown as a butterfly. Butterflies, once they come out of the pupa, they no longer grow. When they come out, they are full size, full grown, and they are adults, and they are immediately ready to go mate and lay eggs. Because the life of an adult butterfly can be only a few days to a week. And then they lay their eggs and it starts all over again. So you can have, some of these only have one generation a year, some have multiple generations a year. But what happens in the winter? So often some of these species, there's some that actually go south because they can't survive the cold. So some of the adult butterflies will go south, and we'll talk about that as we get to the butterflies. But a lot of them go into a state of diapause. So diapause is basically they go dormant. Their metabolism slows. They slow down and they stop growing, so they can get through the winter. It's like a genetic response to cold weather or adverse conditions. They may do it in the summer if it's really too hot. So they can go through diapause as either an egg or a larva or a pupa. Okay. Most of them, I think, are chrysalis when they go through diapause. Most of them, but there's several that go through it as a caterpillar. And eggs, when they go through it as eggs, they're usually the ones that only have one generation a year, where they'll lay their eggs in the fall, and then the eggs will go dormant over the winter, and they will hatch as caterpillars in the spring. So we'll talk about those differences. Oh, the other really cool thing is I learned that when once the larva forms a pupa, it actually liquefies inside the chrysalis. It liquefies and then it redistributes its cells to form the butterfly. And nobody really knows. They haven't figured out yet how they do that, how that happens. So that's another really cool thing. Okay. This, I know it's a little jumpy on here. This is a video I actually took of a black swallowtail caterpillar on my fennel plants. So it eats and eats and eats. I thought it was so cool because he got at the end, and as he went, I could see it actually getting shorter and shorter. He was eating away. I know over Zoom this gets a little jumpy, but I can't do anything about that. So, but what do they eat? The larvae, the caterpillars eat. What they eat depends on their species. There's a lot of different hosts, and we'll talk about that as we talk about the 20 butterflies that I'm going to tell you about today. Some of them will only eat one species of plant, and some of them will eat. There's one that will eat up to 30 different hosts. So it depends on the species again. So the adult butterflies will lay their eggs on that host species, so that as soon as they hatch, they have something to eat. The first thing they eat is their eggshell. They eat their eggshell, then they start on the host plant. But that's all they do. They eat and they grow. And the caterpillars will go through as many as 4 to 5 different molts. So when I show you pictures of the caterpillar, that's not how it looks at each molt. And you don't believe how hard it is to find pictures of butterfly eggs and different stages of the life. So I found one picture of a caterpillar for each one, but it may be a caterpillar, it may be a different color and a different molt. So that's also possible. And adult butterflies, they're not anywhere near as picky as the caterpillars. So most of them, all they'll eat is a liquid diet. So they'll eat nectars from flowers, sap from trees, and another thing they'll eat is rotten fruit. So last year, I have pawpaw trees, and the pawpaws, when they're ready, they'll fall to the ground. And if you don't get it fast enough, the pawpaws will start, rotting on the ground. And once they start rotting, I went out there walking around, and there was a butterfly sitting on the pawpaw that had busted open and was rotting on there. So they will eat the juices from rotting fruit. And if the fruit, I read this is really cool too. If the fruit ferments, the butterflies can get drunk. So if you ever see a butterfly flying erratically, maybe it's drunk. So this is the list, and it's also in your handout, a list of some of their favorite nectar plants. This is not the whole list, but this is just some of the things that if you want to prioritize what you plant for butterflies, you can look at this list. Asters are great because they bloom all summer. So that gives you, it's good to have a continuous supply of nectar for the butterflies. And they prefer, I don't know how they figured this out, but they prefer red, yellow, orange, pink, and purple flowers. They like the short flower tubes because they can get to them easily. They also like flowers that grow in clusters because they don't have to go very far to get to a different flower. They can just go to one spot and get to all those. Okay, here's a list of that I got online from butterflyidentification.com of the 20 common Delaware butterflies. These are not necessarily the ones I'm going to talk about because I made executive decisions to change and make my own list. But basically there are 5 families of butterflies, and I'll go through these as we go through the groups. So there are brush-footed butterflies, and these are some examples. Not necessarily the ones I'm going to talk about. I'm going to talk about the monarch, but not the others. There are gossamer winged butterflies, which are the little blue, mostly little blue ones, copper ones, and those. I'm going to talk about 3 of those. And then there are the whites and the sulfurs, which are all the white and yellow and orange butterflies you see. And I'm talking about a couple of those. And then the swallowtails. I'm going to talk about all of those swallowtails plus one. And the tiger swallowtail is the state butterfly of Delaware. You didn't know that. It's also the state butterfly of Georgia and North Carolina, I think. Popular butterfly. And then the skippers. I'm going to talk about silver spotted skipper because that's one that I have a lot of in my yard. I have a lot of those. And also the long-tailed skipper. These are the ones that are most likely to be confused with moths because they're more dull. Okay, so these are the swallowtail butterflies. I'm going to do those first. These are the 4 that I've chosen to talk about. And as you can see, there's a lot of other swallowtails. Do you know how the swallowtail got its name?
Like those extensions?
Yeah, those little things at the bottom that look like tails. See if I can make my own. Yeah, these little tails, you can see them here. The evolutionary purpose of those tails is if a bird tries to eat them, because birds will eat butterflies, it'll grab the tail and the butterfly will be able to lose its tail and still get away and be able to fly. That's the purpose of those. They're called swallowtails because the tails resemble the tail feathers of a barn swallow. So those are the ones I'm going to talk about. So first one up is the state butterfly, the eastern tiger swallowtail. So this kind of gives you a picture, and this is on your handout too, of what all the stages of its life look like. The eastern tiger swallowtail usually has 2 generations a year, starting as early as March. and going through as late as October. When they overwinter, they will overwinter as a chrysalis. So there's the eggs. They are laid on the host plant, and the host plant for the eastern tiger swallowtail, the one I have shown here is actually the Sweet Bay magnolia, which is a native plant, and I have one in my yard. And so this is one of their hosts. In addition to that, the tulip poplar, which is everywhere, is a host tree for them. Black cherry, which I have popping up all over my yard, the native black cherry. Also the green ash. So the other thing is that once the eggs hatch and they become the caterpillar, this caterpillar is kind of funny looking. And the cat, I don't know if you can see it in this picture. I think you can see it in your handout. The swallowtails all have this organ called an osmeterium. And it's this little organ that's behind their head that puts out a foul scent. So that's part of their defense, like a skunk. So if a bird or something is going to attack them, they will put out an odor to deter that. And all the swallowtails have that. And some of the other species have similar things, but all the swallowtails have that. So on the tiger swallowtail, it's orange. It's a bright orange thing that's behind their head. So that's what the pupa looks like. You also see like something that looks like eyes. A lot of these caterpillars have eye spots. Their eyes are actually up here. This is their head. So these spots here are fake eyes. And that's to make them look scary, scare off their predators. The chrysalis of these is generally a brown color, which is very good camouflage. The chrysalis, as you'll see, are usually brown or green, and that's for camouflage purposes, so that they can protect themselves. And then it becomes the adult, and this particular one. I found a slide that had differences between the male and the female. So with both the eastern tiger swallowtail and the eastern black swallowtail, the females have more blue. So if you see one that has less blue, it's probably a male. So the next one up is the eastern black swallowtail. This is something I usually see a lot of in my yard. Unfortunately, this year I haven't seen it. I haven't seen one yet, so I'm kind of sad. The picture down here of the egg is on. You can see the little egg is right here. The egg is on this plant, and this is bronze fennel. And if you guys want a plant today, you're welcome to take one home. I was hoping I would have some caterpillars on here, but I haven't found it. So hopefully you'll have better luck than me if you put this out. You can put it in a pot. Probably be the best solution. Nice big pot. They're in tiny pots right now. They need to be replanted. And these are a host of the eastern black swallowtail, as well as parsley, dill, anything in the carrot family. Parsley, dill, what else do they get on? Anything carrot, the tops of carrots, Florence fennel, lovage, and rue are some of their other hosts. So the caterpillar, as you saw in my video earlier, people get these confused with a monarch caterpillar, but they have a little bit of a different look because they have see how the black and yellow are kind of alternated? Monarchs are more solid stripes, and they're a little bit bolder and bigger and darker color. The monarchs also, as we'll see in the other video, they have these big antennae on both ends. So if you don't see those, if it looks like that, it is a black swallowtail caterpillar. Black swallowtails generally have about 3 generations a year between April and September. And when they overwinter, they will overwinter as the chrysalis. and come out as the adult in the spring. So that's the picture of it actually having just come out of the chrysalis. When they come out, they're wet. They're really wet, their wings are. And they have to actually pump blood into their wings and dry them out before they can fly. So at that point, they're pretty vulnerable to predators. So that's probably an opportunist time for a bird to come eat it. Okay, the next one is a spicebush swallowtail. And the host plant for this one is a sassafras, is in the picture, or a spicebush, red bay, swamp bay, or camphor tree. So it's anything in the laurel family is a host for this. So that picture there is a sassafras, which I also have popping up all over in my woods, sassafras tree. It's a really cool tree. It's pretty. And you can make tea from the roots, I think. So the eggs here are just white spheres. So they're easily confused with other eggs that are white. This caterpillar is really cool. So he's got the eye spot. And in this picture, you can see the aquarium right here, this orange part. Because his head is actually down here. This is his little head, and this is behind his head. So this is where the foul odors can come out. And these are not real eyes, they are fake eyes. But these guys also have a lot of blue spots on them, and the brown underneath, and the yellow and the green, they're very colorful. And then when they pupate, the chrysalis is green. Sometimes later in the year, that it'll be more brown, and they overwinter as a chrysalis. So 2 generations of these guys a year. So this is what they look like as adults. Again, more blue is on the females, like all the other swallowtails. I think they look more dull than the black. Eastern black swallowtail is more of a like a deep dark brown than to me when you see them. Okay, and then last of the swallowtails is the zebra swallowtail. So the zebra swallowtail, their only host is a pawpaw tree. That's the only host plant that they have. And I have 3 pawpaw trees. And I saw, from a distance, I saw one of these guys flitting around, but I didn't get close enough to get my own picture. So I was really excited about that. So their eggs look kind of marbly like this. They have the splotchy, orangey part to them. This is a picture of a pawpaw, so that's their only host. The caterpillar right here that's shown, this is one of the later instars. So it changes, the appearance of these caterpillars change a lot. And I keep going out to my pawpaw trees, looking all over, trying to find the larva, but I have not found it yet. And then their chrysalis looks more brown, and it's stubbier. It's not, you can tell it apart because it's a shorter chrysalis on these guys. And it's brown like this, so it's also camouflaged. And then as an adult, they are this awesome looking black and white stripe with the little red spot down here. But these are pretty distinctive. You probably wouldn't get this mixed up with another butterfly. And the tails on this one are the longest of all the swallowtails. It has the longest tails. Pawpaw, all pawpaws are its only host, like I said. Okay, next we're going to move up to the brush-footed butterflies. Oh, I forgot to tell you, swallowtails, there's like 550 different species worldwide. These guys, the brush-footed butterflies, are the largest with about 6,000 species worldwide. So they are the largest and most diverse species of butterfly. So the ones I'm going to talk about today, everything, I have not seen a red admiral in my yard, but all these others I've seen in my yard. So this is just an example of some of them. You can see the colored. A lot of them are spotted. I think they're really cool. I love the Buckeye. The reason they're called brush-footed butterflies. These names have really, descriptive meaning to them. So, butterflies are insects, so they have 6 legs, right? But the brush-footed, they only use their back 4 legs for standing or walking. Their front legs are actually shorter, and they have hairs on them. So they look like little brushes, and they use those to taste their food. And they don't walk on those. So that's why they're called brush-footed, because their front feet look like little brushes. They're also known as 4-footed, because they only walk on their 4 back legs. A lot of their chrysalis have silver or gold specks on them. And a lot of the caterpillars will have large spines on them. Okay, so the first one, I get a lot of these at my house, the great spangled fritillaries. I grow, it's not their host plant, but it's a plant for the nectar. I grow a lot of garlic chives. I swear I have more pollinators on my garlic chives than anything in my yard when they're blooming. And that's one of the later, that blooms later. And you'll see a picture of that later. So these are really cool. They're pretty big. And I see these in Canada too, at my house in Canada. There's a lot of them there also. So they're pretty widespread. Their host plant is violets. So you see here's a picture of violets. Oops. So violets is their host plant, all different kinds of violets. And they actually overwinter. These guys overwinter as first instar caterpillars in the violets. So there are just one generation of these guys a year. So once they become the caterpillars, they overwinter, they go into diapause, and then in the spring, they pupate. In the spring, all the males come out first, and then the females come out later. And some of them will go south for the winter if they don't overwinter as a caterpillar. It just depends at what stage of their life they're in. If they're already an adult, they might go south. If they're a caterpillar, they'll stay. They also have the reason they're called spangled is because they have a large metallic silver spots, so they kind of sparkle. Their eggs are kind of different looking. They're kind of look like little barrel shapes. So these are ones that aren't round. But there's several of them that have this shape too. So don't think just about that. And their pupas are just dark brown color. Okay, and next, everybody knows the monarch, right? I actually have had one of these already in my garden this year. The monarch is different from everybody else. The host plant for the monarch caterpillars is milkweed. So it can be, this is common milkweed that I've shown here. Also, I have swamp milkweed, which they've been on. I have butterfly weed, the orange one, and they get on that. So they get on all of these. I haven't seen a caterpillar. I was hoping the monarch that visited my milkweed would lay some eggs. But it was an adult visiting the milkweed flower because mine are blooming and it was getting its nectar.
Debbie,
Yeah?
don't they usually just lay one egg?
I guess at one time, yeah. So.
Because this has like a cluster.
Yeah, I don't know. That was just a picture I got. So yeah, they usually lay single eggs on the host, but they also lay them on the underneath of the leaf. A lot of them will lay them on the top of the leaf.
I have seen multiple eggs on there before.
Have you? Whenever I see multiple eggs and whenever I see multiple eggs under a leaf, it turns out to be squash bugs. So, these look similar to the Viceroy, but they are larger. They're a little bit more rounded, I think. So the stages, the eggs, of course, they're white spheres, and as we had, they're usually laid singly, but I guess they're. So this graphic, the reason I chose this graphic is because it shows different. It shows the caterpillar as an adult here, with the stripes, the orange, the yellow, black, and green stripes, and you can see on its head here it has these little antennae. It actually has them on both ends. I think the picture on your handout shows them on both ends. And then this stage here is when it's getting ready to pupate. You see how it gets fatter? And then the pupas are these really distinctive green things. And I have found these. They hang them on my fence a lot, so they'll be hanging there. And the really cool thing about the monarchs is when they pupate, when they are getting ready. Oh, it's a lot of the butterflies, but I think these guys too. When they pupate and they're getting ready to come out, you can actually see their wings through the chrysalis. And the black swallowtails are like that. The black swallowtails actually become pretty clear, and you can see through it and see the wings inside it before it cracks it open and comes out. So what these guys do is there can be 3 or 4 generations a year, but the way this works is these guys migrate. And all the monarchs on the eastern side of the Rockies migrate to Mexico. They do it all at once, all the way from Canada. They can go as many as 2,500 miles. They just do it all at once, one straight trip. And they get down there, and they go into diapause and whatever, hang out in the trees and stuff in Mexico. I've seen videos of them just all hanging in the trees before. And then when spring comes and they're ready to go north, they don't do it in one generation. They do it a lot more slowly. So they'll stop along the way, find some milkweed, lay their eggs, they'll die, the new ones will come out, and they'll do 3 or 4 generations as they move north. The last generation of the year will fly south again. So it's kind of cool how they do that. They're pretty amazing. The important thing, if you want to look after the monarchs, is to have milkweed available along the way. So it's important along their path is to have different places where they can stop and get their milkweed and lay their eggs. And then the next one goes to the next batch of milkweed until they get all the way up to Canada. And they don't all go to Canada. Some of them stay where they are.
Does it matter what kind of milkweed?
Nope. I've had them on, like I said, I've had them on my common milkweed. I've had them on my swamp milkweed, and I've had them on my butterfly weed. They seem to like my swamp milkweed though. So I don't know why. But that's the way they do. So they have several generations, but all the generations are on their way north.
Yeah, I got a little confused. For some reason, I thought they went to Costa Rica.
There may be some, but primarily they go to Mexico. They go down south. And the ones that are on the other side of the Rockies, like all the way from like Oregon and that part, they go down to the coast of California. The western ones do.
Okay, but ours all go to Canada from here.
You mean on their northern trip? No, they don't all go to Canada, but that's as far north as they go.
Okay, I got it.
That's their northernmost thing. And I don't know if I've seen one in Canada. I see there's a Canadian tiger swallowtail that I see a lot up there. This is another one I see a lot at my house, the painted lady. There's also an American lady that looks very similar. You can tell them apart because the American lady has 2 spots on its underwing, and the painted lady has 4 spots. So that's really the only way to tell the difference that I know of. There may be other ways to tell the difference. Their host plant is a thistle. So this is a picture of a thistle. Thistles are what most people think of as a weed. You'll see a lot of the host plants are things we think of as weeds. Even the violets, a lot of people think the violets are weeds. I have a lot of violets. My whole front landscaping is not mulch, it's violets. Their eggs are these greenish barrel-shaped things. And they're caterpillars. They can be blue, green, and different colors, and they have all these little spikes all over them. There can be 2 or more generations of these guys a year, and they also will fly south. I don't know the specifics of how far south they fly, probably to where they just get beyond where they're going to freeze, because adult butterflies can't survive a freeze. They can't. So they go into diapause at other stages of their life. So the caterpillar can go from yellow, green, and black, and to all the way to a charcoal black color. So they change. And the chrysalis is this beige color. So it's a lighter colored chrysalis. Okay.
They like being photographed too.
Do they?
It's very modelish.
Yeah, I mean, I find some of the larger butterflies easier to take pictures of, like the monarch. I mean, the monarch, I take a picture of it. It was like this far away from me. So I don't even have to zoom. It just sit there, it's just eating, and it just, sitting there eating. So I have some pictures to show you later that I took. The red admiral, I haven't seen this one in my yard, but I know people who have seen it. The host plant for the red admiral is a nettle. So I know somebody who grows stinging nettles to make for medicinal purposes and stuff, but they're also the host plant of this butterfly. So false nettles, stinging nettles, pillatory, and Canadian wood nettle are all hosts for this. There are 2 or 3 generations a year. They also can fly south for the winter. If they overwinter, they can overwinter as adults or caterpillars, but if they overwinter as an adult and it freezes, they die. They just can't do the frost. So they wouldn't overwinter probably in Delaware. But they can overwinter as a caterpillar, but if they're an adult, they will fly south. These caterpillars are pretty funny looking. They can be very, very variable in color. They can be yellow all the way to black. So the caterpillars live in a folded up leaf together. That's how they exist. This is also one of the few butterflies that will actually pupate on their host plant. A lot of them will go to a host plant and they'll go somewhere else to pupate, but these will pupate on their host plant. So that's the red admiral. And this is the common buckeye. Now, I have these in my garden. I love them. They're so cool because of these eye spots. The ones I've seen in my yard look a little bit more bright than this one, I feel like. So their host plant is anything in the plantain family. So this actual picture is purple false foxglove, which is in the same family. So that's one of their host plants, and it was the prettiest one, so I chose that one for my slide. Plantains, also creeping frog fruit, Carolina wild petunias, toadflax, and garden snapdragon can be a host for these guys. And then, of course, the false foxglove. So this one has several host plants. The caterpillars, they're technically kind of a bluish black. You can't tell that in this with the orange and all the little spiked things sticking out.
I always thought that one was a moth.
Did you?
Yes.
Well, now you know, because it pupates.
Yeah.
It pupates, then this is what the pupa looks like. Yeah, the some of these, and when we get to the skippers, you'll see a lot of them. They look a lot more mothish, but they don't form a cocoon. They form a pupa, so they're butterflies. And there's the pupa. It's kind of dull, blackish gray looking. And there can be 2 or more generations of these guys a year, and they will also fly south for the winter. Okay, now we're on to the skippers. Anybody know why the skippers are called the skippers? Because this is how they fly. I don't know if you on Zoom can see me. They fly like they're skipping. So if you see a butterfly doing like this, it's probably the skipper, appropriately named. So the ones I've chosen to talk about, there's a whole group of dusky wings. So I picked one that I think I have seen in my yard. I have a hard time identifying these because they're all more dull. And like I said, they look more like moths, but they're not. They are actually butterflies. The long-tailed skipper I picked because it's kind of cool looking. It has this long tail. You can see a picture of it here. The one I have on my slide is actually with its wings up, so you can't see that the blue part as much. Silver spotted skipper, like I said, that is something I have a lot of in my yard. Lots and lots of these guys. They look darker to me though. They look more black with a white spot. And then the sachem is one that you would really think is a moth. That one looks the most moth-like of all of them. And I do have those. I've taken pictures of those in my yard.
Which
So.
ones, Debbie?
The sachem, it's not on this slide, I don't think. But I have a slide for it. So Horace's dusky wing. This guy's host plant is oak. So all different kinds of oak it will use as its host. The eggs are kind of weird because they start out white and then they turn orange. So the white to orange phase, not many eggs, I think, turn colors like these guys do. The caterpillars are kind of cool looking. So they're kind of like a light blue-green color with a really orange head. So if you see that, that's a pretty distinctive looking caterpillar. And these guys can have 3 or more generations a year, and they overwinter as caterpillars, and then they pupate in the spring.
Do birds eat these a lot when they're in caterpillar? Because I would think they would be too big.
Birds, I mean, caterpillars is one of the primary foods of birds, especially in the spring when they feed their young.
Teeny caterpillars.
Yeah.
These all seem to be big.
The teeny ones are probably moths, you know. But, you know, I mean, it's nature. Things eat other things, and you can't really stop them. That's how they keep going, you know. Everything survives. This one has a really weird looking pupa, though. Because the pupa actually is this glassy, clear looking thing, and you can actually see its head at the end there. And then the adult is pretty nondescript. The adult, like I said, looks like a moth to me. If I saw this on my window, I would think it was a moth. Yeah. What else can I say about this guy? Okay. Overwinters as a caterpillar. The next skipper is the long-tailed skipper. Yes. So this is another picture. You have a picture of it with its wings the other way in the in your handout. These guys are the ones with the really long tails. That's how they're distinctive. Now, some of them may have lost their tails. So you may see one that looks like it doesn't have a tail. Maybe the birds tried to grab it and it lost its tail. So that's its defense.
When the swallowtails, their whole thing was, their whole purpose was to be eaten by the birds. I mean, did they have any, do they crawl them back? Like,
Their purpose isn't to be eaten by the birds.
Well,
Their
I mean,
purpose is to make more swallowtails.
yeah, I didn't put that right, but did
Yeah.
they grow back? The tail?
Oh, the tails?
Yeah.
I don't think so.
Okay.
Because you also have to remember, but their lives are only a few days to a week.
Okay.
So once they're gone, they're gone. But it saves them because they can still fly if the bird just takes their tail.
Okay. Thank you.
The host plant for these guys is really cool, so I wanted to include this one. Anything that's a vine legume type leguminous that makes a vine, and in this case, one of their host plants is your wisteria, and we see that everywhere hanging in the trees. Both American and Chinese wisteria are host plants for this. In addition, kudzu. Kudzu is a host plant for these guys. Butterfly pea and tick trefoil, thicket beans, and another tick trefoil. So those are the host plants for that. So legumes that grow as vines, which is wisteria is a good example. So their eggs are these little yellow things, and they lay those in groups. Or they can lay them singly, or they stack them up like in this picture. And these also have a really interesting looking caterpillar. So this guy has a big red head and a very colorful body. Has orange, some of its legs are orange too. You can see that. And the pupa is also really interesting. So the when it pupates, it covers the pupa with this kind of like blue hairy thing, fuzzy stuff, which is unusual. It stays in a pupa for about 1 to 3 weeks, and it rolls it up in a leaf. So it'll be rolled up in a leaf. This thing, that from what I read, it's unknown if they fly south or if they pupate because they just don't have enough data. So they don't know. A lot of these things, they don't have data. I mean, so we don't know for sure if it flies south or if it goes into diapause. Okay, this is like I said, these guys are like my pets. The silver spotted skipper. So its host plant is actually locust, things in the locust family. So it'll use honey locust, black locust. I believe this picture is some blooms on a black locust. Also kudzu, also wisteria, indigo bush or false indigo, and American hog peanut are all hosts for this guy. So they're always all over my home flowers. They're all over my garlic chives, like everything is. My garlic chives will have bees, butterflies, and other insects on them at the same time. They're just crazy. It's like a big bug party. So their eggs are again the one that's white, but the caterpillars, look at these guys. These are like fluorescent yellow almost. So the yellow green, they have dark stripes. Before it becomes a pupa, it will turn like dark orange before it pupates. And the pupa there you can see is brown. This does overwinter as a chrysalis. Overwinters as the pupa and comes out in spring as the adult. But these guys also, again, they look like moths, but they're not. They're butterflies. Come on, fly. Here we go. Okay, and this is the sachem that I was talking about. So this guy really, really looks like a moth. And this picture is kind of golden colored. They can be more dull than this also. And their host plant, believe it or not, is Bermuda grass and crabgrass. So all that Bermuda grass and crabgrass that everybody doesn't want in their lawn is actually the host plant for these guys. And I have that. I have Bermuda grass and I have crabgrass, which is probably why I saw these at my house. So the skippers, there's actually two different branches of skippers, and one is called grass skippers, and the other one's called dicot skippers. So the ones I showed you before were dicot skippers, and this guy is a grass skipper. So that's what his host is. So there's his egg, another round white egg, and the caterpillars are pretty nondescript, kind of brownish with the black head. And then they pupate. There's about 2 or 3 generations a year, and these guys overwinter in the caterpillar stage. So the caterpillars will overwinter, and then they'll pupate in the spring. And I also have these guys get all over my garlic chives.
Debbie, do you have any idea if their host plants are crabgrass and Bermuda grass, which are native? Are these guys not native? They have other host plants as well.
There's only one butterfly that I know is on here that is not native, so I'm not sure if these are not native. But things adapt.
It's a long time, but maybe some are quicker than others.
But isn't the bad crabgrass actually? I'm not crabgrass, but Bermuda actually native?
I just did a quick Google search. It said it wasn't. So
Not native.
It might be a more scientific name for it.
Yeah, I don't know.
Is Bermuda grass the same as wiregrass?
It is.
The wild one is. Now, I grew up in Georgia, and Bermuda grass is what we put in our lawns, but it wasn't like that. It was I loved it because it was so soft. You could walk on it barefoot. It was so soft, and anytime there was a dead spot in your lawn, it would spread and fill it in. And that's what people planted. And it goes dormant in the winter, just like the wild one does. So in the few months of dormancy when it was in Atlanta, it'd be dormant for, 2 or 3 months. If it was here, then people don't use it because your grass would be brown longer. So, but there's a wild Bermuda, which is the weed. And yeah, I have 17-inch deep raised beds that I just filled up with dirt, and the wiregrass is growing all the way up through.
Wouldn't mowing be a problem for them?
Probably, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's why they say leave a little patch of lawn for the pollinators. So that's the sachem. I think it's the most moth-like looking one. Next is the gossamer winged. These are the smallest butterflies. These guys can maybe be only 1 inch, but they're so cool. I love the blue ones. This is what I have seen the most of in my yard this year. The reason they're called gossamer winged. Anybody want to guess? Butterflies are covered with scales, right? So they have all these scales on their wings. But the males of this species have iridescent scales. So they look like they're fluttery and sparkly. So they're called gossamer wing. So the eastern-tailed blue is the one I have a lot of in my yard. I have a lot of these. And I'll talk about these in a minute. But if you look at this, of the blue butterflies, the eastern-tailed blue right here is the only one that has tails of the blue ones. So that's how you can tell. It looks so similar to some of the other ones. The way you can tell the difference is because it has tails. So these are the smallest ones. There's about 150 species. And the other cool thing that these guys do is that the caterpillars will make honeydew like aphids do, and the ants will take care of them. And sometimes I read that ants will even take the pupa to their ant nest and take care of it there until it hatches. So the first one here, this is the one I see a lot of. You can see on the butterfly here, these little tails. And that's how you can tell it's an eastern tail. The host plants are legumes, especially clovers. Anything in the pea family, they love clover. So if you have a clover lawn, whoops, sorry. If you have a clover lawn, then you're helping these guys. That's their host plant. So white clover, milk pea, downy milk pea, spiked hoary pea, red clover, Chinese bush clover, and Carolina vetch, which I have because it comes as, I have it as a cover crop. So that's also a thing that is their host plant. So their eggs are, these eggs are actually flat. They're like little discs that are flat. And that's how you can tell that this is the species. And they have like little bumps on them. The caterpillars are pretty nondescript, pale green. And these guys can actually go from green to green and red. You see a little bit of red on there, and some of them can even be mostly red. So how these guys pupate is that actually the caterpillar crawls into the seed pods of the host plant and pupates inside the seed pods. So that's where the caterpillars overwinter. So the caterpillars, when they crawl into the seed pods and overwinter there and pupate in the spring. There's about 3 generations a year. And the chrysalis is this little thing. You can see it here on a clover, and it looks like a little bean, like a little pale green bean. And then, of course, this is the adult. These things, remember, these things are tiny. So this is a very enlarged picture. The ones I see in my yard are, you know, an inch wide. So if you see a little flash of blue, see if you can, because it's hard. I took pictures, but it's really hard. I mean, I run on, every time I go to my garden, I bring my phone so I can take pictures in case I see something, because I'm always going to see something. And I see a fleck of blue, and then I start following it. So I'm running all around my backyard with my camera, trying to get it to light somewhere so I can take a picture. So this is another one that's really interesting. The spring azure has only 1 generation a year. They will overwinter as a chrysalis, but they only live for a few days. This is a very short-lived one. So this is the one that's probably more at risk. For the ones that have less generations are more at risk of losing them, but not currently in danger. The host plant for these guys is a dogwood. So you can see the dogwood here. So basically just your regular old native Cornus florida, the native one, is a primary host plant. They will also use sometimes viburnum or black cherry. And the eggs again have these little disc shaped, and they're kind of flattened. The caterpillar will be different shades of green, but the unique thing about these caterpillars is they're bumpy. See all the little bumpies on them? So the spring azure will have these big green bumps on their back. And then the pupa is like another one that's like a bean, but they're usually brown. So these little bean shaped.
Yeah.
I know. You say it looks like a bean, but these are the spring azure, and the next one is actually the summer one. The summer azure. So originally they used to think that these were the same thing. You know, it's like science. They used to put them all together. They thought the spring was just a spring generation of the same butterfly. But it turns out they're two different genetic species. So I don't know if this is the greatest picture. It's the best one I could find. This is actually a picture of a female, which has a lot more black on it. The males will have just a more blue and a little fine line of black around the edge. So this is the summer azure. Their host plant pictured here is New Jersey tea is one of their host plants. So if anybody grows that, also the dogwoods, swamp dogwood, sparkleberry. You know what sparkleberry is?
Yeah.
No.
I never heard of it, so I don't know. Dogwoods, common wing stem, sneezeweed. I've heard people talk about sneezeweed. That's another host. Devil's walking stick, and a soap tree or a mimosa tree is also a host, guys. So these guys will overwinter as a chrysalis. So here's their chrysalis. Here's their caterpillar looks similar. It also has bumps on it, similar to the spring. The bumps, you can't see the bumps as much in this picture, but it has the bumps. And then the chrysalis also looks very similar to the spring azure. So they're related, but they're not the same species. And they tend to be a little bit larger than the spring. Yeah.
Sparkleberry is apparently a type of a blackberry or a blueberry,
Oh,
Cool.
like a huckleberry.
Cool. Interesting. May have to plant some of that. So the next one, this one is another interesting one. So I tried to pick out some more interesting. I've seen this one in my yard, but I haven't taken a picture of it. The gray hair streak. So this is one, it's not a blue, but it has the little tails here. And it has these red spots here. And this is basically to fool the predators to make it think that this is their head. Because of the eye spots. So that they'll grab that little tail there and the butterfly will get away. So these guys could have 3 or more generations a year, and they also overwinter as a chrysalis. The host plant is things in the pea family. I believe that, and the mallow family. I believe that this picture is a partridge pea. That's one of the hosts. I was trying to find different things so they wouldn't all be the same. Also clovers, same things. Hogwort, okra. Okra can be a host for them. Downy milk pea, curly dock, which is another one we think of as a weed, right? Thicket beans, meadow beauty, and Savannah hibiscus. This is the one that has the most host plants. So this one could have up to 30 different hosts. Whoops. So you see the egg here is more of still a flattened disc, but it's more of a bluish color. The caterpillars are still green, very similar to the other ones in the same family. They're usually green, but depending on their host plant, they can actually change their color. The chrysalis can be mottled brown or green with speckles, and it's again bean shaped. There's the chrysalis, and that's its overwintering form. But I think these guys are really pretty too. And again, they're a really small butterfly. Okay, I'm going to move on to our last family that we're going to talk about today. The whites and sulfurs. So no special name for these, no special description for these guys, but you yellow versions of these butterflies is where butterfly itself got its name, because then somebody looks at them and thought they were the color of butter. So these are generally white, orange, and yellow variations. So we're going to talk about cabbage white, the clouded sulfur, and the checkered white are the ones I've chosen. I see a lot of white and orange and yellow butterflies that go by so fast, and I can't. They're gone. They're there, and then they're gone. Where did they go? You know. So I don't have any pictures of these, or get a close enough look to know which ones are actually in my yard. But I know these are all present in Delaware. So this is one that is actually considered to be an agricultural pest. Because it's named cabbage white, guess what kind of crops it is a pest of? Things that are in the cabbage family. Huh?
I believe I have those.
You have those?
I believe so.
Caterpillars will bore into heads of cabbage and broccoli. So they're people don't like them for that reason if they're trying to grow those things. But anything in the mustard family, the brassica family, can be their host. There are 3 generations a year, and they also overwinter as a chrysalis. So here's their host plants, the different mustards. Their eggs are kind of weird looking. They're these long little tubular things. The caterpillars, I'm not sure this is really the greatest picture of the caterpillar. I think this one has a lot more black speckles than what they usually have. And they're actually more green with the black head. And the chrysalis is this green. It can be speckled tan later in the season. And that's where it overwinters. And then when it comes out, it is this little white butterfly. The females will have 2 spots, and the males will have just 1 spot.
Are they tiny ones too?
Yes. You're probably most likely to see these guys as caterpillars on the cabbage. And I know we're going over time a little bit, guys. I'm sorry, but I'm almost done.
And the best thing to do is just cover your cabbages or your broccoli, whatever you do.
With the row cover, yeah.
That's what I did.
Yeah.
As I saw it flying, I'm like, I don't think that's a good thing.
Yeah, row covers will keep them off. So clouded sulfur, this is the one I chose that was yellow. This is a male in this picture. These are the ones that look a little bit different. The females, I think, have more yellow and less dark. Some of the females can even be white. And the females can have yellow spots. So the females have fatter borders and yellow spots on their borders. The eggs, again, look like this. They're white and they're spindle shaped. The caterpillars look kind of cool. The host plant for the caterpillars is things in the, like alfalfa. This is a picture of alfalfa here. Anything in the alfalfa family, clover, and vetch are hosts for them. The adults prefer yellow flowers. I guess they're saying because it probably camouflages them a little bit. There's 2 generations a year, and these guys also overwinter in the chrysalis stage.
Debbie, what was the host flowers for them?
The host, the alfalfa host plant is the primary host. And this is the last one. This is a checkered white. This is the only one that they're worried about becoming endangered of the ones in this group. There's a lot of ones out there that are endangered. Of course, you hear a lot about the monarchs, and now they've discovered the monarchs, in addition to habitat loss, which is the big thing, they've discovered they have a parasite now. So that's attacking them. But they're not currently actually endangered, as far as I understand. But these guys are borderline endangered. checkered white. They can also be considered a pest. They also attack things in the mustard family. I think this plant is called shepherd's purse, but when I see that, it's a weed to me. But it's a host plant for them. The eggs are a yellow-orange color, and the caterpillars are very colorful. So the caterpillars are green, striped with yellow, dark green, purple, black, little black fuzzy things, and a blue-gray head. The pupas here are light gray-green, they say, black speckles. And these guys overwinter also as a chrysalis. You can have 3 or more generations a year of these guys.
Have you ever seen these?
I see white butterflies in my yard, but I don't know which ones they are because they won't sit still. Okay, so that's all for the butterflies, but I have just some tips of things you can do for them. So you can make sure that you can provide host plants in your garden. So we've gone through what a lot of those are. If you want to attract a certain butterfly, you can try to get some of their host plant out there. Don't disturb the caterpillars. I recently learned this because I would tell people, if you have a caterpillar on your parsley that's eating it, just move it somewhere else to a different host plant, but now I learned that you shouldn't do that because they're very, very fragile. You might be able to like cut the parsley off and go put it somewhere and hopefully it'll crawl somewhere else, but you shouldn't pick them up because you could really hurt them. Provide flowers, all kinds of flowers for nectar, especially things in the aster family. Again, we've got another food source you can use is rotting fruit. They actually make, I think, butterfly feeders, similar to hummingbird feeders that you can hang up and put fruit in them for the butterflies. A water source. They need water like everything else, but they can't drink water out of, say, a bird bath or something like that. They need something to stand on. So this is a little simple design I found online. They took a pot and turned it upside down and put the saucer on top and put some rocks in it. And you can put water in there and the butterfly can stand on the rocks and drink the water. The ones I have marbles in. So they have it's like a little shell and it has marbles and you put water in there and the butterflies can stand on the marbles and drink the water. You might see butterflies drinking out of mud puddles. That's really important, especially for the males, because that's where they get their salts and their minerals that they need to, pursue the females. Yeah.
Don't put that near your source for bird
feeder.
water,
Oh, yeah.
because then they will
Yeah.
eat them.
They
So,
will.
yeah, put them away from that.
Yes, mine is actually in my garden under the plant, so it's kind of sheltered. And then of course, don't use pesticides on these plants, or you'll kill the caterpillars and the larvae. All right, the next thing I have, I'm going to warn you. I made this little video of pictures that I actually took of butterflies. Now, I'm not a professional photographer, so some of them might be blurry, but I wanted to show you. All of these pictures were not in Delaware because, like I said, I have a house in Canada too, and there's a lot of butterflies there. So some of these pictures were actually taken in Canada, even though the butterflies are also in Delaware. So just want to let you know that. So. The resources I use, a couple of books. This one is pretty basic. This one is pretty basic. It's on your list. I think it actually won a Kids Book Award. It has just a little bit of information about a lot of different butterflies, but doesn't really go really in depth. It has a lot of good pictures. This one is really, really good. This one, Gardening for Butterflies, has a lot of information about the plants, the host plants for the butterflies. So those are a couple of good books. Also, there's some websites on here. Down at the bottom, the Alabama Butterfly Atlas is really awesome. That's where I got a lot of the pictures of the eggs and things at different stages, because try finding pictures of butterfly eggs online. I mean, it's not easy. And so that's a good one to look at if you like that. The butterflyandmoths.org, I actually signed up for a membership for that. You can sign up, and then you can report sightings of butterflies of your own. So those are some good ones. And again, we're the Kent County Master Gardeners. We usually have 3 or 4 gardening workshops every season. This summer we only have 2. Summer's hard because everybody's busy and there's the state fair, so that's the thing. Garden advice program, we can go to your house and check out 3 things that you might have need help with at your house. Could be identifying plants. It could be making recommendations on where to put a raised bed or a garden, and identifying invasives, and looking for problems with things. So different things like that. And you can apply online on our website if you're interested in that. We also have a Master Gardener helpline that you can call for questions. And we're having a new Master Gardener class. It's too late to apply this year, but it's on odd years, so you get time to think about it if you're interested in that. And anybody have any questions that I can answer? Yeah?
Couple questions. I think you answered one of them. Colorations of the different butterflies. Is that related to their food source? Is there a caterpillar?
Oh, the caterpillars?
Yeah.
Some of the caterpillars, they're camouflage. That's why they're green. And then some of them, like the monarchs, the monarch's host plant is the milkweed, because the milkweed is toxic, has toxins in it. So the monarch caterpillars have adapted to be able to eat those toxins, but the birds don't like it. So that's their natural protection. And they're bright colored to warn them. So the ones that are more camouflaged are not protected. So that's the only thing I know about that. I don't know about any of the other colorations. So, we'd have to ask an entomologist those questions.
Yeah. The other question I had is, during the migration period, did they mention anything about pheromone from butterflies? Just curious.
Yeah, they're like for mating.
Yeah,
It's
for
not-
mating and
Yeah,
signal.
they have different ways. Different species have different ways of attracting a mate. They'll say a lot of times that, like, some of the male butterflies will go up high in the trees and they'll just watch because they have good vision. So it just depends on that. I don't know specifically which ones use pheromones, but a lot of insects do use pheromones. So I'm sure that's part of it.
And then last but not least, has there been any DNA studies linking the different species and differentiating the species using a DNA analysis of butterflies?
I know that some of that's how they figured out that the spring azure and the summer azure were different, but I don't know about any specifics about that or how they did it. So we can find that out, of course. They did do genetic research has been done on butterflies to, and everything evolves. Science changes all the time. So as they make new discoveries, they have to change and update things. So they may discover new species of butterflies out there these days. Some of these days, once they get all this done, they may discover with DNA analysis or genetic analysis of some sort that 2 things they thought were the same thing are actually different. Or 2 things they thought were different are actually the same, different versions of the same thing. So.
Thank you.
Huh?
I think you can get her first.
Oh, Do you have a question? Okay, sorry.
It's about skippers and identification, because most of the butterfly identification books that I find don't include skippers. What do you use?
This one doesn't have skippers in it.
Right, do you have something that you recommend for skippers?
Some of these online sources, I don't know. This one has some stuff. I don't know if skippers are in here. But this, like I said, this one has a little bit about the butterflies, but it's mostly about the plants. So we can look. You're welcome to come look at the index and see if there's anything in here about skippers. Everything I found out about skippers, I had to research online, and the Alabama Butterfly Atlas is good too. It has the skippers on there.
Okay, so I went online and I asked Google, are all caterpillars either moths or butterflies? It didn't answer that question, so I'm going to have you answer it. But it did say that fuzzy caterpillars are always moths. I didn't know that either.
I mean, what's their definition of fuzzy? You know, because there are
Like the woolly.
Yeah, the woolly one.
Yeah.
yeah, like the tussock moths.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, the tussock moths are pretty, I mean, those are really fuzzy. And you don't want to touch them because they can give you their protection is an allergic reaction if you touch all those hairs. So those fuzzy ones are definitely moths. But there's some of these that have different kinds of spines and stuff, so they can give the appearance of being fuzzy. So, whatever fuzzy means, they may be talking about tussock moths.
But it didn't answer the primary question are all caterpillars either moths or butterflies?
You mean, do caterpillars form something else?
Yes.
I mean, as far as I know, they are, but I could be wrong. I'm not for sure about that. Yeah.
I had the unfortunate incident a few years ago, and I can't unfortunately remember what it was, but there was a caterpillar that had some rather large spines. It was a kind of a yellowish greenish one, and it had some hairy spines, and they sting.
Right. So that's
It was
probably
very painful.
that could have been a moth, I think, but I don't know. It could have been a butterfly.
Yeah,
I don't
I'm
know.
not sure, but I tell you, it hurt.
Ed just found a tussock moth on my azalea last week.
Oh.
He took a picture of it. He said, "Look how cool this is." I said, "Yeah, it's really
Don't
cool
touch it.
eating on my azalea."
I just had a thought and I lost it. What I was gonna say. Well, it had to do with what you were saying. What were you saying about the
The stinging hurt?
yeah. I don't remember.
Spikes.
I lost it. Yeah.
There were a couple comments. Just thank you, Debbie. Great job. So much fun learning about who's fluttering amongst our plants. Always enjoyable workshops. This workshop was amazing. So glad there was a Zoom option today. It worked for me, and the visuals were great too.
Okay. Thank you.
Yes.
And those of you who are on Zoom, I will you don't have the evaluation link, do you?
I don't. Sorry.
Yeah. So I usually am the one to put it in there, but I'm not doing that. So I will email you the evaluation link. And if you could please, we're looking for planning workshops up through the future. So make sure if there's something you want and not the 100 other butterflies at Delaware. So that's something we can do.
All right.
Somebody did write, she had to leave at about 11:05,
Yeah.
and she wrote, "Hope we get materials and recording emailed to us." Wonderful information. Thank you.
Yeah, well, I have nothing to do with the recording, and we try the best we can to get that done. It gets recorded. It's just what happens after that gets to be out of our hands. So the materials, if you signed up for in person and you came on Zoom, I can send you the handout. Everybody who signed up for Zoom already got the handout. The only other handout I have here is if any of you guys would like to take home a bronze fennel as a host plant for the eastern swallowtail caterpillar, I am giving these away.
Are these big enough pots?
They're in pots right now. Some of them are that big. Yeah, probably. Well,
If
you wanna
anybody,
give away
if
one?
anybody needs a pot, you can, I've got the back.
And if you take one, I have a fact sheet about this plant. The only thing I don't agree with on this, because I have these, they reseed. This is how I got all these. So we are with part of the Delaware Cooperative Extension, and as such, we are accommodating to anybody who needs any accommodations. And we are accepting of all people.